Why should Instagram have all the art fun?
Why not bring the art conversation to LinkedIn?
I'm Melissa, an artist and a culture sleuth.
I'm Nina. I'm a visual storyteller, a LinkedIn content creator, and a photographer.
Creativity is as vital to a successful business venture as it is to an artist.
So why is the conversation about art and business segregated to different media platforms?
That's what led us to create a live show on LinkedIn.
We interview fascinating experts and explore art and how it relates to business, technology, and education.
Welcome to An Artful Life, curious conversations about the ways humans make and use art.
And here we are.
Hello, hello.
Welcome. Today's show, we have Peggy Townsend, and we're very excited to have a talk with Peggy about art in so many different ways. And Melissa, why don't you give us a short introduction about who Peggy is and how you know her?
I would love to. Peggy, I'm so glad you're here. And for those of you who don't know Peggy, I'm going to indulge myself in telling you that I love her particularly because 33 years ago, she helped me petition for my husband to become an artist in the United States with the Department of Immigration. So that was a really lovely personal tie. But on her own, she's been working with public art her whole professional life. So there's been museum work, bringing education from the museum to the people, young people, older people. Also, the Artists Union of Chattanooga, the Association for Visual Artists. I believe you were the first or the second president of that, Peggy. And so that's how we met when I came to town as a young artist. And then she and her husband began an art school where began regionally, I think would be fair to say. And then now it's artists and students flying to Tennessee from all over the world to study together. And so we're super excited to talk to you about the intersection of art and the public and education and all of that.
Wow, that's a lot.
Well, we got plenty of time.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Peggy, what brought you into a career of art to begin with?
Well, I think it was sort of I kind of took a step back. So when I was young, I grew up in a very musical family. We sang. My dad taught himself how to play the banjo when he became 40. I was in choir. I was really good at it. My mother was in theater, but there was no visual art, but I always loved it. I always loved to draw. I loved to paint. And I also loved Carl Jung. And I decided I wanted to go in to be a Jungian analyst. So I went to college to study psychology and to be a Jungian analyst, which is, like a dream analyst and a therapist with a Jungian bent. And I took my first psychology class and I was bored to death. and my roommate at the time was an art major, and she would come back to the dorm with these drawings and sketches, and she was doing life drawing. I'm like, this has always been, a part of me, something I've enjoyed. So I switched my major to art history. And from then, I've just been super lucky in landing jobs within the field. My first job out of college was in the education department at the Hunter Museum. I went to school in Memphis, so I came back home to Chattanooga to do that. So it's always been just sort of just in me, I guess. And I was lucky enough to, I guess, hate my major and decide to do something else. So that's kind of how it all started. And I've kind of stayed in it ever since.
That is wonderful. That's a great story. I love that. And having also the gum say like, not for me, and no, I mean, sometimes there are things in our lives that we just have to stick with, but having that clarity that this was definitely not what you wanted. That's great.
Yeah. I also went to school at a time when my son is 24 and he just graduated from college, and there was so much prep, even when they're like in 9th and 10th grade, to think about college and to get a college counselor and to think about all these things that, they're only 15. We didn't have that then. So I think in some ways it was kind of nice. I'm like, I just went to school. I picked a college I liked. I don't like this. I don't like that. And so it didn't really interrupt a path necessarily. So I guess in that regard, it's pretty lucky.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's definitely a sign of generation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all the goal setting and all the, what we do nowadays and the intentions and stuff, we didn't do any of that, I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
same.
yeah,
Same. I didn't have a clue.
yeah.
Still don't.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Uh, we were thinking that maybe we would start into the meat of things with, we both wondered what brought you and Stan to open an art school in the form that it is.
Wow. Well, we had both been involved in creating an art community before we started the school. So, Stan was the founder of AVA, which was Association for Visual Artists.
I did not know that.
He was co-founder with Charlotte Landis. It was born out of Chattanooga Venture, which, Nina, that was a very now famous public visioning process that was, 30 years ago in Chattanooga that bore a lot of what we enjoy today in terms of the Riverwalk and some urban development, things like that. And
Public art.
And public art, yeah. And Ava was born out of that. And then I was the first full-time paid director. And I don't know, I mean, I got a real satisfaction of integrating programming with the public. And I got to see, how the public really enjoyed and needed something that didn't even exist before in terms of the arts. I mean, it was barren here. This is like 1986. 88, 86, somewhere in there. There was no aquarium. There was no, walking bridge. There was no public art. We had a great museum, which we still do. But it was bleak. And, but we created something and people responded to it. And one of the pieces that we kept talking about, I left to go to grad school and came back years later to do public art. And the Atelier came after that. So this is, we're talking a big chunk of time. But one of the things that we kept talking about personally that still hadn't been addressed was a place where people could go to learn how to make art in a non-academic setting. Like instead of taking something, at a university or, what is auditing something. And that's kind of how it started. So we started small by doing some workshops at a business incubator where our office was. And it was very ad hoc. We would kind of occupy a warehouse room and bring an instructor or two in. We maybe did 2 things a year. But people came. And, the idea was to have artists that were professionally trained and working artists, not people just in academia, but people that were making art to teach others how to do whatever skill they have to offer. And then we got a space and we're in our second space. And our first space, we really kind of went full force and started really programming it. And people came and responded, and we had beginners and people that were 90 and professional artists. And we just slowly over time, this was 15 years ago, built a community. And, I'm super proud of it, but it was sort of a leap of faith. We didn't know how to do it, and we just had a passion and a vision and said, what, we've been talking about this for years. And if somebody else does it, we're going to be bitter. I mean, seriously, we're going to be mad and bitter that we didn't do it because we've been talking about it for so long. So that's kind of where it came from. And we just kind of started in an organic, small way, and it grew to what we have today.
I love how you frame that, because I mean, not that you ever want to come from a negative, but that's how I feel like when I see people do shit that I wanted to do at some point and never did. Yeah. It really upsets me. I mean, I'm glad that it exists, and I obviously didn't do it, didn't follow through, whatever it was. But it also was like, shit, that was my idea,
Totally. So, yeah, that is completely accurate.
Yeah.
And the other thing too that I think is just something that has happened, at least throughout my career, is, there's a leap of faith with all these things, like I didn't know how to open up an art school. I'm still learning, I don't know everything, obviously. I didn't know how to run a public art program. We don't know these things. But if you have the passion and the vision, you'll figure it out. You will figure it out, and you'll surround yourself with smarter people than yourself and look at best practices and, create something that, is real. And that's so much fun. It's like any kind of creative act is taking something from an idea and making it happen. It is super satisfying.
I bet you had an instant feedback loop too. Oh, that worked. Oh, that didn't work.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we totally did. We totally did. And yeah, we've had some failures along the way, obviously. But that's just, part of it.
Yeah. So I was looking at, I was stalking you a little bit, obviously, and I saw, the paintings that you're showing on your official website, and you just mentioned before beginners. So who is your student body? Because what I was seeing on the website was super intimidatingly awesome.
Well, it's everybody. And I hate to be that, broad about it, but it really is. We have people that have never done anything before. We have, and that are afraid to come. And we have people who did it a long time ago and put it to bed because of family, career, maybe a negative teacher that told them they couldn't do it at one point, and that pick it back up. And then we have professional artists, like Melissa and some of her peers will come and travel to study with a particular artist.
Yeah.
And so it's really all over the board. And we have people, now that we've been in business for 15 years, we have the privilege of really seeing growth in particular individuals that stick with it. And some of those people started out like not knowing anything, but like with anything, if you stick with it and you practice and you learn and you're open to it, you can improve and really get to a place where some of them are exhibiting now. We have one teacher that started, kind of small, and now they're teaching with us. So yeah, it's really pretty amazing to be able to watch that kind of growth in people.
Yeah, it really is. In the beginning, you talked eloquently about what your original purpose for the school was. Now, 15 years later, has your goal for it evolved? Or as you look to the future, what are your hopes for it? What do you think's worked well? What would you like to add in?
Well, I've reached one of my goals recently, and that is to hire part-time staff.
Wow.
Yay! Finally, after 15 years, somebody knocked me in my sense. So I have a part-time staff person. Nice. And that has been awesome, which has enabled us to not shy away from evening classes, because a lot of people want them, but I'm here from 9 to 5 and I'm ready to go home. So she's able to pick up some of that. We're able to really just do more of what we do. I still haven't quite figured it out, but I really want to do something for young people. We have a lot of young people that come to our adult classes, but we don't really have like a youth art education program other than some of the summer art camps that we do. And that is something I'd really love to tackle. It might be something that my part-time person can help me with. She just started in January. But I really would like to do that, because we get a lot of calls from people saying, I have an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, and, they have a talent and a passion, and what do I do with them? And I don't really have anything for them. So that's something I'd love to see happen. And in the store, we have a material store that we have kind of maxed out of what we can do in terms of the footprint, that we have in a very small space. I would like to augment that in some way. We're still learning on what people really want us to carry, and what's going to make money, obviously, and not just sit there on the shelf. So we're kind of trying to tweak that a little bit too.
Yeah, finding what you need is getting harder and harder, except for mail order. Nina, as a photographer, your supplies, I don't know anything about your supply list, but for us, if we're on the road, it's hard to know where to get good supplies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's more on the technical end, obviously. So I'm just like, I've got B&H Photo on speed dial. And
Uh-huh.
I always joke that I cannot take my credit card when I go in there. But nowadays, your credit card is on your phone, so you're screwed either way.
Instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
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 But yeah, I can see that with paint supplies and that there's that sort of that fear of not having the right stuff with you, right?
And it's speaking as someone who has been both a student and a teacher at the Atelier, it's an amazing bonus to have a class and then you realize that there's a color or a brush that you want and you can walk 30 yards to the left and go buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we are.
I just want to show the
Oh,
Atelier.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That's
Amazing
the main
image.
studio.
Yes.
I think it's
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
I mean, I want to move to Chattanooga. And we've talked to so many fantastic people at this point from your hometown, Melissa. I feel like I need to move to Chattanooga.
I want you to. And
You
it's a
should
cool town. You would at least love regular visitation. We are an art
Yeah.
town.
Yeah. And then this is the store. It makes you want to rummage really badly. Because I also love to, I'm a lousy painter, but I would love to also. I love painting too. So
Well, then you should come take a class.
I think
Yeah.
Love seeing my book in your photo, Peggy. Thank you.
Yes, there's your
Oh my
book.
God. Here it is, right? It didn't even register with me.
That was not planned.
I
That
love
is
that even more.
so cool. That is so cool. Anyway, just wanted to show these two since we were talking
No,
about.
that's great.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, here we go. That's the framing we want.
Go ahead.
Just, I mean, I don't even know what that term, that phrase is in English, but sort of talking a little bit from your experience with students over the past, 15 years that you've been running the school, any standout anecdotes, little tidbit stories that might be amusing?
Oh boy. I don't know that I have a standout story. We have had people meet here
Oh,
and get married and have children. So we're a little matchmaker place.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have any standout. I will say we had 12 workshops back to back this past week. We had 12 days of workshops back to back. And we had, I would say, maybe 6 people from all over the country that have been here probably 3 times already. And to me, that is just, we're doing something right. B, they're spending a lot of money too. They're traveling here, they're getting Airbnb, their spouse might come, they're eating out, they pay for the workshop. So that really says so much that, people are repeats, not just the locals.
yeah.
So that is an experience of personal satisfaction that stands out. I don't know that we have any events other than we did have a model who was pregnant, whose water broke during a drawing session. Yeah. And it was her first baby, so she didn't know. She thought she had just had a little accident. And the older women who had been mothers in the class said, "Oh my gosh, we got to call your husband and get me to the hospital." That was a memorable moment. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. And she didn't know. I love that.
she didn't know.
So Melissa was telling me all about the paint outs that you have with guest artists, and it just sounds like such a hoot. What was how did that even come about? I mean, it's such a brilliant concept.
So there's several organizations that do, they're called Face Off, or I think the National Portrait Society does one where 2 or 3 or maybe more portrait painters will be in front of a live audience, and it's a demo kind of thing and a Q&A. Ours is a little more irreverent.
That's the perfect
We have that. We do that, and it's very serious. But we encourage friendly heckling. Like friendly competition too. So it's really key. Like we did one with Timur, Melissa's son, and Nicholas Uribe, who's from Bogota, Colombia. And he's a character and he's an excellent painter and he loves an audience.
He's very verbal.
He's very verbal and very entertaining, and Timur can be as well. So putting the two of them together, and they wanted to kind of go head to head. So they had a model, and we can probably fit about 60 people in our space, and it was packed. And it's great because non-painters can come, people that aren't in a class can come, and just collectors or those that are interested and curious. And they sort of heckled each other. And then I've had Melissa and Dowd and Timur, her whole artist family, do it together. And it's loads of fun. And, it's educational. And people are so fascinated to understand how the painting process works. And it demystifies it too. One of the things that I really want people to feel is not intimidated when they come here. I think I might have mentioned to one of you earlier that my first experience at an art museum wasn't until I was in college, when I had to go through my art history class. And I was a little intimidated. We went to theater and music events, but not art museums. And it's if you haven't experienced it, it can be very off-putting, and you don't know how to act, and it just has this kind of air about it that for whatever reason exists around fine art. And, we don't want that here. And we continually hear people saying they feel really comfortable here. It's a place where they can relax and feel like they can create. And when we do these kinds of events, like we're talking about, it just sort of adds to it's for everybody. And even though these people are amazing at their craft, it is not a dumbed down activity at all. And people are learning in the process. So they're lots of fun.
I want to tell my anecdote when I got to rip away the audience sympathy because my painting fell off the easel, wiped itself down, and I had to start over, and I managed, and I totally had audience sympathy.
Yeah, you had people in your corner.
I did.
Is there a scorekeeping happening in the
Well, not really, but it's it's sort of a I guess you could do the round of applause, the applause meter, at the very end of it, see who won.
It's more like a tennis, like I remember as a girl, I went to a demo of the local tennis champion, Roscoe Tanner, I think he was,
Roscoe Tanner,
on whom I had the most ferocious crush. And they basically just sort of collegiately patted the ball back and forth, but it was a lot of fun, and we were glad to be there. And I think they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds like so much fun to attend and to just witness, right? Yeah.
We need to do some more of those. We really stopped at COVID.
Right.
Our whole business changed during COVID, like everybody. And I'd like to bring those back. We've had plenty of, public exhibit openings and things, but I think we need to bring back we call them art throwdowns, is what we call them. Art throwdown.
The throwdown.
An art throwdown.
Okay. That sounds good.
Before we leave the school, I wanted to ask you if you have the sense, working in this art school that is for everybody, that what you're doing, I mean, really, when you think about it, it's food for the soul, because nobody needs an art class to live. Anybody who's taking the trouble to show up at your school is doing this for their soul. And it makes it a special kind of business. Do you feel that?
Oh, totally. Completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it is for the soul. And I'm glad you brought that up, because, before our conversation, I was just thinking about, creativity and the purpose of art, and, and personally what I think the purpose of it is. And it really is about our humanity. It's the thing that creating is the thing that makes us human. Yeah. And gets in touch with our inner desires, our inner vision. I mean, you're talking about music, theater, poetry, all of it. I mean, when I need something emotionally, I turn to music, or I might turn to poetry. I look at visual art all day long, and I love it, and I couldn't live without it. But the act of doing, particularly in a world where we're so computer oriented, you have to slow down. I mean, we're talking like 2 or 3 days from 9 to 5 all day, painting or drawing and just observing and looking and slowing down and seeing something. That is meditation. That is so valuable. You have something at the end to show for it, but the process and the act of making, whatever it might be knitting, is super, super important. And I do see it all the time. People, maybe that's why they keep coming back, because their lives are busy, but this is where this happens,
Yeah.
I mean, repeat business, that's the best advertising you can get, right?
Yeah.
That's excellent. Melissa, did you want to get into the second group of questions that we had?
I would love to. Nina and I want to explore your perspective and your view, having seen Chattanooga change from the we got nothing 30 years ago that you and I both experienced to quite a rich city not done growing yet. And just sort of how you've experienced that effect on the population, on the city. You already mentioned on the economy, all the people. So we're opening it up for your initial thoughts.
Wow. I mean, it's night and day. It is night and day. And I honestly cannot, if I don't go to a certain part of town for a few months and then go, I don't recognize it. I mean, it is that, like, new restaurants, new housing, all the things, new people. We get people that come in here all the time that have just moved to Chattanooga, or they're thinking about moving, and they just pop in to kind of, see what's out here and see what we're about. And that didn't happen, 30 years ago. The key things that really set that off were the aquarium, the first aquarium being built downtown, and then the Walnut Street Bridge, which is a mile long, or half a mile each way, pedestrian bridge, which is a public park, which is now closed for renovation, but it's going to be great when they reopen it. But those two things really changed the way people related to Chattanooga and related to their city. And, you've read all the stories about how people would work and then they just go home to their suburbs, and downtown was dead. Well, those two things really started changing that behavior in a way that spurred all the wonderful things that we see now. And having grown up here and then being desperate to leave and come back, I did not want to leave. I mean, I did not want to come back. I left in 92 to go to graduate school, and the aquarium was just breaking ground. And I came back in 95, and it was a completely different city, and I wanted to stay. Yeah. So, that being away and not watching it change, it was like mind-boggling. It was a completely different city. And now we have the Riverwalk and, the waterfront plan and, the connectors of parks and urban spaces. And oh my gosh, it's just, I'm so proud of our city. And it's taken, every sector, to make that happen. The arts are a piece of it for sure. Outdoors is a piece of it. Urban planning for sure. All of it it's a one big soup that each ingredient necessarily had to be there. It's not just one thing. But it's just such a fabulous place to be. It really, truly is. And in some ways, I don't want people to know about it, but in other ways, I just want to sing it from the rooftops, about the city, because it's something that I'm super proud of for our city. A lot of people have, worked hard at it. Melissa, you're one of those too. You've been involved. You really have. You endowed, and it's just, it's remarkable. It is really remarkable. What a special place it is.
So, having been there at the beginning, maybe you would be able to say to a city that had nothing, what were the forces
Mm.
that stopped the continuation into nothingness, turned the ship around, and to say we're going to start with an aquarium?
Well, that's a big conversation. And I mean, there's so many articles. If you all link things after this, I can send you a fabulous article that the Times Free Press did about the resurgence of Chattanooga. And it really goes back all the way to the 80s with this visioning process that I mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Riverwalk came out. It was a big community visioning process. And it, it bore so many of the things that we see now. And people that come here, having not seen it change, are like, wow, this city's awesome. And it is awesome. But so many years of work and so many people, made that happen over the years. And now we're just seeing the fruits of it. But what was your question? You said, what is
Well,
it?
I was just wondering what were the forces that,
Oh,
so somebody had to decide we need to change something and we need to figure out what it is. We need a
yeah.
visioning process. Was it a lot of people? Was it 3 people?
Well, I don't know if it was a lot of people. I would say that, and I don't want to say absolutes because
Sure.
I wasn't there. I was in high school.
Okay.
This stuff was happening, but I've heard the lore and I've read some articles, and then you just pick things up. But I think that the public-private partnerships were really, really key. We're really lucky in that we have several large private foundations in Chattanooga that care and understand about urban design, about human places, about place, about the ecology, about the arts, about all the things that we're talking about that matter to creating a place where you want to be and you want to live. And those forces, I think, were very integral to pushing the agenda, if you will, to make this happen. I mean, of course, this is years and years of work, but lots of money, lots of, I'm sure, persuasive conversations. But the Chattanooga Venture, which was the visioning nonprofit that did the Chattanooga, it was called Vision 2000, I think it was called. That was where the whole community came together. Of course, there was probably a small group of people that made that happen. Then the community was invited to come and bring their ideas. And a lot of them stuck, and a lot of them we're living with and enjoying them today. So it's remarkable. It really is remarkable. And I would imagine that other cities could do the same thing, but it's got to have a couple of government can't do it alone, and private sector can't do it alone. And I think that partnership is probably what really was our secret sauce.
I also think that there has to be an innate understanding, especially from the government side, that art is not just, instrumental for people's well-being, but also can be a really strong business driver. As you just mentioned, I mean, people coming to Chattanooga, I mean, your studio is one example of that, right? And you multiply that times 200, you've got 2,000 or whatever, you've got a thriving other arm of commerce and of income into the city, art tourism, right? So I think that willingness to invest has to be there from both sides, but I think more so probably from the government side. I would venture to guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. And also, I remember way back in the day, we were talking about public art before we had a public art program. And, it was just in trying to talk to people that aren't in the arts and trying to explain to them the importance of it. It's hard because it's an abstract and they don't really know what you're talking about. But when we had one thing to point to after one project was done and you have something that happened, then you're like, now I get it. And then that just sort of multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. And now it's really, I wouldn't say it's easy to convince, folks that art is important, because I think it's a constant battle,
Yeah.
particularly when you're talking about government funding the arts. It is constant. But at least from my perspective in Chattanooga, the conversation became easier when we had something to point to, because then they could understand that, housing popped up, or more green spaces popped up, or the economy, took a turn for the better, or people were outside enjoying and sitting and reading, because this thing, whatever the project was, didn't exist before. So it just took time. It just takes some time to get to that point. But I think that the vocabulary is there now. Like, at least in our city, I think the vocabulary is there. And I think, like, our current administration, I believe, really understands that and gets it.
I would argue not from a city resident point of view, but from a tourist point of view, the only thing that matters about a city is the arts. Like, if you're a resident, you need good schools, you need the garbage picked up, you need the roads to not have potholes. But if you're a tourist, you want the culinary arts, you want jazz clubs, you want the Eiffel Tower, which is architecture and art combined, you want the great art museums, you want and the things that are in your photo album that you call your friends home about are all within the scope of the arts. And if you take those away, nobody wants to visit your city if they don't have family there.
No, and every city looks the same. They come to a place because the place has something unique to offer. And usually, like you said, it has to do something with the creative world.
Arts or nature, right? You can be the gateway to, something like, I don't know, the Grand Canyon or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are the two. It's either sport in the sports and nature arena, or art arena. But in the end, I think even if you had the most amazing nature outside of your city, it would still not fly if you didn't have the culinary arts, for instance, right? Because people they want to eat well, right? And they want to be entertained, for sure. Yeah.
And architecture too, and good urban design and planning and all of those things, create a place, where you want to be and send the pictures home and all that kind of stuff you're talking about.
Especially nowadays where everybody has a camera in their back pocket, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe we could look at a couple of photos of some of the things Chattanooga's installed. Would this be a good time?
There's not much. I must warn you. All right. So there's this.
That's the passage.
I was here when it was installed. It's a bridge between the river that divides our city and the urban side of the south side of the river. And it's flanking our aquarium building. And this is an installation that the Public Art Committee that Peggy was, I think, the leader of at that time, commissioned from a group of Cherokee artists because of their tie to this place in history. This is from where the Trail of Tears began. And so they were offered this land to create a monument. And I really loved their choice. I was at the meeting when they came to present the proposal, and they said, I'm going to get choked up. We are not the tragedy that happened to us. And so we're not going to make a piece of art about the Trail of Tears. We're going to honor our rich cultural history from the side of positivity and beauty.
That's exactly right. So the passage is one of several projects that were part of a sweeping plan called the 21st Century Waterfront Plan. And our mayor at that point was Bob Corker, who was an incredible person to work for and with. He had a vision and a very tight timeline. And I mean, it was like under 2 years, but it got done. And right now they're looking at tweaking and rethinking some, not the passage, but some of the green space and enhancing it, because it's, this was done in like 2005. And it's going to be really exciting. I'm excited to see the improvements. But as Melissa said, this was one of 3 public art projects. We had $1.2 million out of that budget to work with. and a committee was assigned to it, and I was the staff person. And we had never had that before, just for public art. I mean, it was unprecedented and the right thing and exciting, and it really kind of set the bones for what now is the public art program. But there was a national competition for the space that the landscape architect had designed with these water steps, and that was, to connect the plaza with the water. And as she said, this is a departure point for the Trail of Tears. And in the original, just the architectural kind of drawings, concept drawings, before we did the competition, it was sort of like a memorial. It was like this Trail of Tears memorial where you kind of read some panels, and it just showed drawings of people walking around, and it was more of an exhibit. And we went to the Cherokee Nation and to the Eastern Band in North Carolina and got input from the tribes on what they wanted this place to be. And exactly what Melissa said, they were like, we are more than just this tragedy. We, of course, want to acknowledge it, but we are a thriving, cultural, relevant, living, breathing community. Mm-hmm. And the award was given to this group of artists out of Oklahoma, Locust Grove, Oklahoma. They had never done a public art project before. One was a potter, one was a metalsmith, one was a school teacher, one was an administrator. I mean, they were all artisans, but they'd never done a big public art project. But their presentation was so authentic and passionate and right and beautiful that we're like, yeah, let's do it. Kind of like we were talking about earlier, just leap of faith, like this, all the things are aligning and this is the right group and we're going to figure it out together. And they did a beautiful job. What you're looking at are these water stairs that start at the top of the plaza at a weeping wall, which symbolizes the tears. And then these big discs, I think they're like 6-foot ceramic glazed discs. There's 7 of them, and they represent 7 different kind of reimagined images that have been found in the on like mollusk shell carvings and other Cherokee artifacts, but kind of in a modernized graphic version. But they each have a meaning and a story behind them that ties to myth.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And then there's syllabary that explains it, which is the Cherokee alphabet. There's some syllabary plaques and things like that. It's phenomenal, and
oops. I wish we had more photos, but I love the idea of just these steps, like have the water run down them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to, because we have to be mindful a little bit of time. I wanted to just quickly show another project that you were heavily involved with, right? This one here, I just had it up for,
yes.
We have 2 that's the same building, right?
Yeah.
So that is
it's the AT&T building in Chattanooga.
So
Yeah, so I will, there's a link to a documentary that maybe we can put up later. It's americasboulevard.com, and it's Boulevard is BLVD. It's abbreviated, americasboulevard.com. And it's about a 25-minute documentary about the entire process of making this mural, and it's really worth a watch. The artist is interviewed, some of the people that worked on it are interviewed, but the gist of the mural is that it is a city block. It's the AT&T building, which is has no windows, which is important because when Meg Saligman, the artist, came to look at buildings, we wanted to employ her to do a large-scale mural in Chattanooga. She was dead set again on getting this building because there were no windows, which is perfect for a muralist. I don't know if we can do it, we'll try, because it wasn't city property, and we were city Chattanooga, and if it were our building, no problem. So it was a long process in getting approval, and we did. And then all of the images on the mural are gathered from public meetings and from stories she gathered from people that lived and worked there, events, places, everything is intentional.
Is local.
Yeah.
And local.
Specific.
Yeah. And it sits on MLK. It's called the MLK mural, but the title is "We Will Not Be Satisfied Until" is the real title. And it came from Martin Luther King's speech on the Mall in August of '63. And there's a lot of reference to his speech in that. And it's a complicated history with a lot of racial tension, which she did not shy away from in her depicting of it, and a lot of wonderful stories about what was there as well. I think the old Liberty Theater was a very vibrant theater that was on MLK, was in the spot where the AT&T mural is now. But anyway, there's so much to talk about with this mural, but the documentary film is the thing that I would point people to if they want to know more. But her name's Meg Saligman. She's out of Philly, and we had about 6 people from her team live here for about 9 months and worked on it round the clock. And then we had about 6 local people that she hired through an application process to learn the technique and also work on it. So once she goes, we'd have some local talent that knew her technique. It's
Right.
really stunning.
Yeah, I love it. It's very, very vibrant. I love it very much. Melissa, I think we need to move to our famous last 2 questions, right?
I think we do.
We're skipping over a whole bunch of stuff here, but
Next time we'll block out 3 hours because
Yes,
there's so
I
much
know.
to talk about.
Oh man.
If you were to face a young person who really wanted to be a liaison between art and a city and art management, art education, museum work, how would you tell them to prepare themselves?
Wow. Well, I think finding a mentor is a really key thing, whether that's someone you work with or that you seek out. I think that having a passion for the work is the first thing. If you don't enjoy any of this, it's not fun at all. This is hard work. Public art is hard work. It is tricky. It's messy. So if you don't have a passion for it, it's really not going to be for you. But it's so satisfying to make it happen. And also just, have a curious mind. I learn something new every day. I don't know everything. None of us do.
Yeah.
And, there's always something new to learn, always, every single day, and just stay open and curious. But if they're interested in doing this stuff, get an internship with a museum, or an art school or city government or, whatever. It might not be work that you enjoy. And, internships are a great way to kind of test things out because there's lots of people that have great information that are willing to share.
That's a really great tip.
I love that. And then the last question we always ask is there a particular piece of art that is in your office or at home that if there was a fire, you would grab it and run?
Oh gosh, that's Sophie's choice.
I know.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. Oh, I love them all. Well,
I know the feeling all too well.
Well, we have so much art. We have a lot of art because that's just what we like. But having thought about the passage a lot before this conversation, Bill Glass, who was the lead for the team, he's a potter. He's a really well-known Cherokee potter, and he does these beautiful engraved and glazed pots. He gave me a pot.
Oh, wow.
He had made. Yeah. And it sits on my mantle and I love it. not because it's just the pot, but I grew to love him and the project was important, and I probably would grab that pot.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a thread that runs through all of our talks. It's not just the most spectacular piece. It's a piece that we have an emotional bond with, a piece that holds stories, and a piece that we connect with on not just the art level, right? And we're innately, story driven, creatures. So yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. So everybody always, it's never the piece of art. It's a piece of art and the story attached to it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true.
No offense to my husband, who I just said I wouldn't grab his artwork. I think he'd be okay.
Him probably, so he can produce.
He can make more.
He can make more, yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So if Stan listens to this, we just pull him away or serve him a drink towards the end.
He'll understand. Yeah, he likes the pot too, so.
Okay, good. But he can grab some of his work, on the way
Right.
out. Well, Peggy, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. And I also think, especially in the current climate, political climate, a conversation that is so, so important to be had.
Yeah, for sure.
Remind ourselves of what is important too, right? So this has been fabulous. Thank you all for those who watch this, be it live or as a replay. We appreciate you. Please, in the comments, let us know whether you have any topics, artist friends, or art-related people that you want us to interview. We'd love to hear your ideas. And if you have more questions, this is not dead. It's alive. We're going to check it out. So ask away if you have any more questions, and we'll be sure to answer them. And we'll see you again next first Tuesday of the month, which will be May something or other, with another fabulous guest.
Yes, Amy Erickson.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
I learned a lot, Peggy.
I
Thank
like
you.
the tools too.
Yeah.
Bye.